welcome to the CamerataCast. This is the third episode of Season 2. That
Ooh.
is a change up we made, adding seasons to this weird project of ours. But yeah, this is the Camerata Podcast, the podcast for the Los Angeles Camerata, a collective of artists that are just, trying to put their names out there. We just do our best to create and to uh, collaborate. And this is a weak start. I'm sorry.
All
This-
good.
All right. But yes, Camerata Los Angeles. If you don't know us by now, we are a project based out of the Los Angeles area that is basically bent on creating a whole bunch of different collaborative projects, whether it's this podcast where we talk with different local artists, or our mini mixtapes and sample packs on Bandcamp, or live events, which we are extremely happy to be putting together finally after more than a year. But in any case, that is just a short introduction to us. Why don't y'all take it away? Shiro the band.
Yay, it's good to be on here. So we are Shiro. I'm Hannah.
And my name is Steven.
And we are a duo. We are a moody, unconventional electronic and indie rock band from Los Angeles.
The music is a melting pot of sounds, from reverberant pads, glitchy beats, soaring and ambient vocals, and angular affected guitar riffs.
Oh, yeah. So we're happy to be on here on Camerata. Some of the stuff that you may have heard from us include like our EP Remain back in November 2020, and we're working on new music right now. So we're excited to be on here and talking about it.
Yeah, I'm super happy to have y'all on too.
Yeah.
Y'all have a very modern sound, but it reminds me of a lot of my favorite like bands from the 80s and early 90s, like especially the synth stuff. I've been listening to Remain a lot recently, and Seaweed, the third track on the EP. It just gives me such weird Peter Gabriel vibes.
Oh wow, I totally hear that.
Yeah.
But that's actually a new one. We haven't gotten that one, but I totally hear it.
Awesome.
Well, yeah, it's like I totally dig your stuff. I'm a huge synth freak. I love synthesized sounds. I love the equipment that creates them. And hearing your music is it's always a treat. But yeah, y'all have a whole bunch of music out on Spotify and the other streaming platforms. I wanted to ask, what is coming down the pipe as of late? What sorts of new sounds are y'all going for?
Well, we are working on redoing a new track, just like how No Evil, our last single release, was kind of a redo of a really old track from our first EP, kind of redone in our newer, more late style as of late, which is more electronic and synthesized. So we're redoing the song Jackknife, which is more of a rock song, but with more electronic drum beats and synthesized sounds still going on with it.
And then we're also going to be recording a new EP, and hopefully that'll come out. But, with COVID happening, we have no idea when they'll happen, but that'll definitely happen in the near future.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm super stoked to hear it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Speaking of, COVID, first of all, and of shows, that's something that we've been putting together soon. But I saw that y'all are going to be playing Junior High LA, the second installment, as it were.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, our first show got sold out, actually. And so we're going to play a second installment of it on July 16th. And that one also got sold out, so we're super excited to be playing there again. It's really exciting, especially, having it be the first show after COVID, or I guess the second show now, but within that first chain of things. Again, at junior high.
That is sick. How was the first one? How did that go?
How would you say it went, Steven?
It went really well. I mean, it was a little different coming back. I think that's why her hesitation came through, because like it was a very different experience, and we did have to wear masks inside while performing, which is fine, given the circumstances of performing inside during still a pandemic going on. But also, it was a little strange, I know, especially for Hannah to have to sing with the mask on, and having to play guitar with a mask on in a hot, basically concrete room is like it can be a little uncomfortable. and everyone's kind of sitting down and chairs far apart. So
Mm.
while the vibes were different, it was still great to come back. Great to be playing live again. Great to feel the energy of still playing in front of people, and see other people playing live as well. And really, people really enjoying themselves. Actually, you can tell the energy is a lot different coming back, because everyone's like so appreciative of finally being at a show again. So that really drove it home for me as just like no matter how we felt we did, everyone just enjoyed it just because everyone's so happy to be back at it.
Awesome. I'm super happy to hear it. Yeah, I hope to see y'all at another show sometime soon. Because from the video I saw, Hannah sent me a video of y'all performing. Y'all have badass stage presence, and I
Oh,
really just want to experience that.
Thank you. We've been working on it like during quarantine for sure.
yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, so I did want to ask as well, more of a in-depth kind of look at your sounds. Again, folks, if you haven't heard Shiro yet, check them out. They're on all the streaming platforms. Really beautiful, synthy, almost dark wave kind of sound, but far more chill than a lot of dark wave. But yeah, I did want to ask, what are some of the inspirations artistically that go into the music that y'all make? Whether it's other bands or movies, books, other creations that kind of went into the melting pot of your creative influence.
Hmm. Well, you were spot on about the modern sound because a lot of our influences are definitely from the 80s and 90s. We both love Radiohead, especially
Hmm.
like Kid A album, and Portishead third album specifically. I like FKA Twigs a lot and Björk. That goes into my singing. And some of the newer people, I guess, would just be like Eve's Tumor and Broadcast. Um, any other influences you would think of, Steven? Or-
I definitely could say also we've been getting into some older films such as like The Godfather and older kind of epic films. I feel like that's kind of abstractly been kind of influencing this very like slower pace, I guess, at the same time, but more things going on subtly, more details in our songs,
yeah. Also,
more
the cinematic feel, I think.
yeah, more of a cinematic feel overall. Definitely as of late.
Nice, nice. Yes, I love songs that you can clearly imagine like a scene to. That's one of my favorite things, just being able to envision something occurring in this very cinematic, choreographed way when you're just listening to something. It's a
Yes,
beautiful feeling.
we love that too.
Yeah, totally.
Awesome. I did also want to ask, and just a question that came to mind: are there any sort of places that you find as inspiring as artistic pieces? For me, I haven't really been out too much. I've only really started getting out this past like month or so.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I miss going to more natural areas. I miss going to places like Abalone Park out in I think it's San Pedro,
Oh
and
yeah.
just like being surrounded by nature more often. I really need that in my life. I wanted to ask if there's any places where you kind of like find peace and kind of influence your creative development.
Hmm. Well, for me personally, I would say it's like a matter of extremes. I love the countryside, but I also love the city. I find a lot of peace in the city, like just being able to walk around and feel like you're like part of like this giant crowd, but you can get lost in it. Especially we moved to LA, for example, like I think in April, and it's been really nice because we go for our night walks and you can feel the energy of the crowd without having to engage in it per se. Like just walk through it and feel the energy of all the people. And then I love the countryside. I think I gain a lot of inspiration from this time. Me and Steven both went to Korea in 2020, and I got to visit my grandparents and go through the forests. And a lot of times when I write my songs, the images of the forest come into my head.
Mm.
Yeah. What about you, Steven?
I'd say I definitely agree on the extremes. It's definitely something me and Hannah both agree on as far as having like extreme loves for desolation or very remote and beautiful places, but also like the very dense cityscapes. I remember recently we did take a trip out to like the Grand Canyon area when COVID was opening up a little more, and it was a very interesting trip to like go and see something so huge and so natural and be kind of lost in something almost visually because it was so vast and so different than the city where we come from, which is
Mhm.
so cramped and small. It's still big, but like you're kind of like cramped inside of it in a way. It's almost like because you look anywhere, you just see a building. But
Mhm.
it's interesting to be and to experience something so large. That's what I didn't realize how big it was.
Yeah, that expansiveness has definitely been coming into the EP lately. The new
Yeah,
one that we're working on.
like the expensiveness of the city, but how it's claustrophobic, but also the expensiveness of like the country and how it actually is vast.
Yeah.
Ah, I dig it. I super dig it. Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm a really big city dude. I played a show for Las Ritas on Tuesday night. Shout out to Las Ritas, really cool indie rock bands doing all sorts of zany dance music. But I
Mm.
filled in for their regular drummer, Edgar, and the show was in this is like smack dab in the middle of downtown Los Angeles.
Oh,
And
nice.
as soon as I hit 8th Avenue and started driving in, I was like, holy fuck, I immediately feel like claustrophobic. It's an incredibly intense feeling when you're just surrounded by these huge concrete obelisks. Like, I don't know. The show or the venue itself was really nice. It actually felt because it was a very small venue, the Ham and Eggs Tavern. Really lovely
Nice.
little, huh?
We've been there before too. That's nice.
Oh, sick. Yeah, it's a beautiful place. I really love their setup, but somehow it felt less claustrophobic than driving around in the city. It felt
Mm.
very strange. But yeah, that's just my take on cities. I'm more of a smaller town kind of guy. Not to sound like a country boy in a small town kind of guy. Well, yeah, it's like, thank you for sharing that. It's always cool to just have these more casual conversations with artists.
Yeah.
If you don't mind me asking one more sort of casual ish question before I delve more into like the deeper stuff,
Yes.
um, I did want to ask as well, are there any sorts of like hobbies or skills that y'all have picked up during the pandemic that y'all kind of want to incorporate into what you do regularly? Is there anything that, you
Hmm.
just found a whole bunch of time for, and now you're like, yeah, now this is a part of my routine.
Oh, geez. Oh,
Okay. That's a
I've been cooking a lot. Like that's been how I've been keeping my sanity during quarantine. Um, like just learning how to make a lot of substitutes for things. Because me and Steven aren't vegan, but we are trying to like just kind of cut down on some of the red meat because
just
we're
meat in general,
we're just
really.
getting
Yeah.
older. Also the environment,
Environmental concerns.
but
Hmm.
yeah, that's been really cool because like I've been making so much stuff and saving so much money. So I'm just like, maybe in the future I could like have some sort of Shiro thing, but also have like maybe like a food related event too. That might be kind of cool. What have you been doing, Steven?
Hmm. I'd say I've been just getting really into personal wellness more, and the importance of just keeping the body and the mind in check,
Yeah.
and how that plays into daily life and routine, I feel like that was something that a lot of people, including me, did not think about before this quarantine happened. And I think that was something that I had the chance to really rethink was how I felt on a daily basis. Like it wasn't normal to feel exhausted at work, all day and come home and feel almost too tired to do anything. But we were working really hard in time, so having to do more, coming home, repeating it, and then realizing, wow, my diet wasn't good. I was not sleeping well, I was not exercising, I wasn't taking care of myself. Of course, I wouldn't feel well while I have a busy routine and a busy life. Um, and so that's definitely something that I've been working on, and I think it's just been going into our music in the sense that we've been able to actually put more and more time into it and more like effort and really learning things, really trying to challenge ourselves more and more. And yeah, I mean, I think the new songs are about developing yourself into a new person and developing one's ideas and conceptions about life and something that's more, I guess, plausible to live.
Awesome. Yeah, that's beautiful. I'm happy to hear that you're leading something. You're leading a life that you find more fulfilling through that, or at the very least that you find less, tiresome and irksome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally, absolutely.
Yeah. So if you don't mind, I did also. I keep saying that. I also wanted to. I did also. Oh my goodness. I gotta improve my lexicon. But I wanted to ask, I wanted to go more into, as I had said before, some deeper stuff. And you kind of brought it up earlier about wanting to be more conscious about what you consume.
Mhm.
Um, I just wanted to ask. So y'all are very vocal on social media about social issues and economic issues, and that is to be applauded, of course. To put time out of your day to be able to share and really contribute to the dissemination of information regarding some of today's most pressing issues. I That is always appreciable. And I wanted to ask, because I do want this podcast not to be totally a downer, because it can be sometimes when we talk about this. But I want to ask what's giving you hope right now, because there is a lot of bullshit happening right now, and there is a lot of things that can make it seem as though things are only getting worse. But every time I find something, personally, every time I find something that's like, oh, this is a total downer, and now I'm depressed, I end up finding something else that's like, oh, but there's reason to have hope. There are people who are doing things that are, you know, contrary to the status quo of environmental destruction and of political division and social division.
Mhm.
And that beauty kind of keeps that fire alive in me to want to keep striving towards that same goal.
Mhm.
And I wanted to ask y'all, first of all, what's giving you hope?
Um, well, for me personally, I think what gives me hope is just that, like, I have been seeing people a little bit more recently, and just doing that has reminded me, like, hey, like, I think people are way more negative on social media. And now when I see them, it's just like they're so, like, loving and kind. And I remember, like, oh, maybe in the past they actually were this loving and kind, and I just never really paid attention to it or appreciated that. Or maybe people are more appreciative now, and so they are kinder. And I guess that's what, like, has been kind of giving me hope, where it's like we've all gone through this giant traumatic experience together. And yes, it might cause more people to become more evil, but I think generally speaking is actually kind of given more people like an appreciation for what they were missing out on. And I think in that sense it's given me hope, where it's like after this is all over, hopefully everybody can just like maybe grow up or mature a little bit spiritually, and we can all come together and really like work on this, because now we can see that the things that are happening in the world like need to be tackled. Otherwise this pandemic or all the bad economic and government things might happen again. So that is what gives me hope. How about you, Stephen?
I feel like definitely the reaction of people, seeing people again, has been really a sea change. I think it is easy to get isolated and kind of weird. I
Yeah.
think we've all been there at one point, especially recently. And it's been really good to go out a little more, see people again, see see the sea change, and people's politics and viewpoints on things. We went to a show where one of the people playing the show opened up with a statement regarding, if anyone has an issue that night regarding behavior with anyone else, to like report it immediately to the staff of the bar. And it was a really big moment. I've never heard a band really do that before, and that was a big thing for me. And it really encouraged me to try to do that from now on as well, and have my band do something similar. And I can already feel that sea change happening. I think there's a different vibe going on at these venues, and people are determined to keep these things safer and more equitable for everyone. And it's great. I think it's awesome.
Hell yeah, that is beautiful. I love hearing it. Um, Yeah, it's my first show back. The vibes were definitely that way. It felt a lot more communal. A lot of show, maybe it's just the shows I'd been to and shows I'd played where people were very much wallflowers, and not only socially, but also like I don't know. It felt like there was a strange tension between shows. Like people just weren't interacting,
Totally,
and
Mm,
totally.
yeah, at this ham and eggs show we played, everybody was just talking. Everybody was like going up to the other bands saying, "Oh, you were rad." Band people from the bands were going to the other bands, and it was just very communal. And that's one of the things that's definitely been giving me feelings of hope, and it's just been quelling off the despair. Being able to experience more communal events where people are able to see each other for how they are and kind of dissipate that screen that is between us, both physically and metaphorically.
yeah.
I've had the chance to go to a whole bunch of amazing art events that were organized by couple amazing folks out in the Long Beach and Anaheim areas. Shout out to Haley Roper and to Josie Peisty, who are creating, really cool events where people can share their art and people can share their stories. People can perform at parks in the Long Beach and the Anaheim areas. It's been really nice just seeing all these people gather and just create together. That's what's really been, stoking my fire as of late.
Yeah, we agree. I remember the shows before COVID, how everybody would just kind of stick to their own friend group, but it is definitely a lot easier now.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing for sure.
Mhm.
Aside from the EP coming up and your second performance at Junior High LA, did want to ask, do y'all have any other plans for the near future, whether Shiro related or outside of that realm?
Hmm. Definitely more shows. We're currently in a state of booking some shows. We're gonna have an indie goth night at DBA sometime in August.
Ooh.
Yeah, so definitely watch out for that one. And probably going to go back to Long Beach a couple times, just because it's like our home base,
Hmm.
even though we're in LA now. And working on the new EP and um,
I would say that's pretty much it. I
yeah,
mean,
that would probably be it.
I think we're other than that, maybe another merch run future. But I think for the most part, we're just going to be just like slowly watching things open up and taking our time with shows
Yeah,
and seeing how things really go.
especially with that new Delta variant of COVID. You don't know what's going to happen.
Eesh, that's right.
Yeah,
Oh my goodness. Um, yeah, yeah, it's kind of a bummer to see that.
yeah.
Somewhat expected, of course. Definitely because of you know, a combination of our weird aversion to masks in the United States.
Right.
Oh my goodness. It's like, for Christ's sake, it's not a temporary revision of your freedom to just wear a mask for the sake of others. Christ's sake.
Right. I mean,
Um,
there's other things that seem like more like government control. But I don't know. It just seems strange to me.
that's my favorite thing to see when I'm like doom scrolling on Instagram memes about the vaccine, where it's like everybody's talking about like they put in microchips in your veins, and it's like they don't need to track you that way. You're using social media. You have a
No,
cell
no,
phone.
no,
Right.
no,
Like,
no.
why didn't you think of that first?
Yeah,
Oh my goodness, it's a real bummer to see how twisted our specific media system can really shape our how do you say our perceptions about reality. It really just creates this sort of vacuum slash echo chamber where there really is no room for truth. There's only really room for your preconceptions, and once you find a place where your preconceptions are amplified, then it just gets fucking louder and louder from there.
Oh God,
definitely,
yeah,
definitely.
yeah, totally.
Yeah, but on the plus side, I believe vaccination rates are still like rather high in the U.S. I
Right.
think we're actually the most vaccinated country, so that's something.
You know,
Surprisingly.
I believe that actually. Like I heard, like the media likes to say that like we're the only people that like really shun vaccination, but some other places, like I know France is like really not vaccinated. Like they have the largest population of anti-vaxxers or something like that.
Really? I wouldn't have
Yeah.
guessed.
I wouldn't have guessed so either, but so it was kind of fascinating. It's like, who else is not getting vaccinated?
Yeah, it's definitely an issue as well of just lack of access because a lot of places in the global south have been basically denied vaccines by way of jacking up prices.
Oh
In some
yeah.
of these places, like especially in Africa,
Yeah.
black bodies have been used to test the vaccine. So it's really just adding insult to injury to jack up prices in those areas where people volunteered to test vaccines for the global north to use at will.
And then people have the gall to reject it in the global north.
Oh my
And on
gosh,
top of that,
exactly.
it's just like, oh my gosh, like people don't. Yeah, it's exactly what you said. People don't even have access to it.
The privilege is unreal.
Yeah, it's
Hmm.
it's kind of sickening.
It's very gross. But yeah, it's if you guys want to continue down this road, I'm down for a downer if y'all are.
We are downer folk. It's okay.
Yeah, that's how it was.
I I will say when it comes to the vaccines, that I don't want to sound at all like I am promoting anti-vax theories and anti-vax conspiracies because that is what they are. However, I am by no means completely hateful of people who are anti-vax because I understand that, like I said, our media system is completely twisted. And if you
Mhm.
grow up in a situation where you have no choice but to kind of like accept that the media is the truth, as it were, and that, some forms of media are bad, some forms of media are good, and the one that you're watching right now is good. It's like, it's understandable to believe that people, like, are indoctrinated in that way. Like, I believed for the longest time, like, oh, pilgrims came over and they said hi to the Indians and
Oh my
they made
god.
friends with them. And it's like, no,
Oh,
no, that's not the truth at all. It's like, it's a matter of unraveling layers of government aided deceit. So it's hard to be completely like hateful of folks like that. It's just, I don't know. I can't say that I'm completely empathetic, but I can say that it's a sad truth. It's a
right.
sad reality.
Definitely. And I also think I kind of understand the level of mistrust, um, especially because it's such a widespread thing. Like, we've never really had something like this happen in our lifetimes before.
Hmm.
And there are a lot of people that are just distrustful of governments and like, these like mandated programs for a good reason and stuff. And I'm sure they might think like, oh, there might be a way for them to control us, even though, there's no way to prove that, but I can see it. And also like like as far as like I wouldn't say this is the same for like certain people, but like a lot of like I know indigenous communities and black communities have been used for like medical experiments and like forced sterilization and stuff, and those
Hmm.
were government mandated. And there's a real fear in that, like maybe that something like that could happen where I don't know. I don't know. I've heard some like black anti-vaxxer friend of mine talk about like how she thinks it's gonna like make her sterile, but I was like, I don't know about that, but I can understand the fear because I know what's happened in your communities before. You know what I mean? So,
Hmm. Yeah,
hmm
exactly.
hmm
It all kind of winds back to the fact that our current imperialist government has gone to every length imaginable to worsen the lives of others, especially people of minorities,
right,
for the sole sake of profits and resource accumulation.
right,
So
Totally.
yeah, like every level of mistrust is completely like valid in some way. I distrust our government. I'm not going to
hmm
say that like vaccines are their in to completely controlling our life because they're just there are things that are more controlled by the scientific community than they are the government.
hmm
But at the same time, you know, especially for people of minority communities like the Black community, the Indigenous American and Indigenous population everywhere communities, um, it is completely valid to believe that at every step the government will try and screw you over.
yeah, definitely.
Aye, aye, aye. I do one more kind of thing on this, just to sort of, how do you say, what do you? My bad, had a little brain fart there. But one more thing regarding socioeconomic issues that I did want to touch upon and ask y'all about, just to kind of lighten the mood a bit, if y'all don't mind. I wanted to ask um, specifically if y'all want to shout out anybody in your creative communities or in your communities in general who you know are doing their best to really help their community achieve and help their community just you know become a more equitable place. We typically have this kind of section on our podcast. It's usually like, hey, if you know any bands or know any artists, why don't you shout them out here? But let's kind of make this a bit more of a how do you say social issues recognition thing.
Of course.
I do want to, yeah, let's put that out there.
Okay. I want to give a shout out to the people in Todavia who is currently running the Moonflow radio station.
Mhm.
They try so hard to raise up like BIPOC voices, and I am so appreciative of that because we need more of that. A lot of the shows within the station are BIPOC run and like queer, and they're both queer and they lead it, and it's just like a wonderful thing to see. The music there is super tight too, so I definitely recommend seeing moonglowradio.net or Mixcloud and finding their station. I also want to give a shout out to Polar Tropica because she's a visibly queer Asian American woman, and she does a lot of really cool things for the community, like especially with her girlfriend. Uh,
Partner.
what was her name again?
Partner.
Her partner, sorry, her non-binary partner, Lauren YS, and
Hmm.
they run Squid Tropica, which creates little micro grants for LGBTQ artists and showcases them on their Instagram page. And that program is called Squid Tropica, so I recommend that you check that out.
Oh,
And
lovely.
I also want to give a shout out to the Daily Diddy. Um, it's run by this guy named Sunny, and I forget the other guy's name at the moment. But what they do is they created Ocean Organization in Long Beach, and that creates um, it's a nonprofit for artists to be able to showcase their work. And they also run Push for Peace in Long Beach, which is a skating for peace protest slash community event where you can go out and skateboard, and they create skateboards for local kids in the area to get, that way they don't fall into drugs, and they have like a hobby to get into, and all these things are for free, and it's really cool.
Lovely. I thank you so much for letting me know about that. I'd seen that Polar Tropica had performed at one of the junior high events. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, she was headlining for our shows actually, for both the dates that we played and the date that we're going to play on the 16th.
Radical. Yeah, I'll definitely check out her work.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I do want to shout out some amazing organizations as well. Let's give big old props to the folks at Long Beach Fresh. This is an organization that has been just doing their utmost to help the Long Beach community grant or gain access to organically grown, locally sourced foodstuffs. They currently have a whole bunch of projects going. They work with local restaurants to put organic foods into their pantries and onto their menus. They have a map online. You can check it out at longbeachfresh.com. They have a map online where you can see all of the neighborhood gardens and urban farms in the Long Beach area. It shows you as well where you can shop for different types of foods, like foods for different allergies, foods that are vegan, whether at restaurants or supermarkets. These folks are doing an amazing job of creating a more ecologically sustainable food network in the Long Beach area. So, big shout out to them. I also want to give a shout out to the Fem Synth Lab or the Feminist Synth Lab. These folks are leading a synth lending library and workshop in the LA area that is meant to help people of, how do you say, marginalized genders to gain access to musical equipment and to the education that might be necessary in order to use it in the most effective way. So these folks have a lending library and it is always open for donations. So if you have synthesizer equipment or other equipment for musical work, then please consider donating it to the FemSynth Library. They are amazing folks who are doing their best to help folks of marginalized genders create. Thank you for your work. All right, so that will be about it. If y'all don't mind, we can wind it down. I do want to thank you so much for joining me on this cast. Y'all are very brain fart. Sorry. I can't talk for too long. Why did I ever start a podcast?
You're doing great.
I did want to thank you though for coming on the cast and for sharing your thoughts about your music and for sharing your thoughts about the world around you. Just if you want to give a short recap, where can people find you? What are your upcoming shows or show? I think it's just junior high for right now, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So for right now, we're gonna play the show at junior high, July 16th with Polar Tropica and Tangerine Band. We are Shiro. What else are we?
You can find us on Instagram as at Shiro Band, where you can find a link tree to our music, or you can just find us on Spotify directly as Shiro, or under Bandcamp as Shiro the Band.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much all of our music is available on all the other platforms as well. If you really want to use like Deezer or something else, I think you can find us there.
Yeah. And we're also on Twitter, so if you want to start some Twitter beef with us, everyone listening is more than welcome to. We want to get more on that. So
And we do have merch available if you are interested, such as cassettes and CDs. If you want physical copies of the EP Remain that came out in November, as well as a T-shirt designed by a local artist who's amazing.
she's actually in not Polar Tropic. Sorry, she actually is in Totavia and Moongo Radio. So it all comes together.
Rad.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you all for listening to this episode of the CamerataCast. This is Andres Marquez, your host as always, and this was Shiro, the band. We will catch you on the flip side. Thank you all for listening, and we hope to see or / hear from you in some way soon.
All right. Thank you so much, Andres.